Everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks and Modern Campground. We're on week 3 of the intro stuttering, and I can't figure out why. I don't have any time to troubleshoot it with Restream, but it's a good intro if it plays normally. It did for like a year, and then they just changed their platform, and now it stuttered for you guys, didn't it? The intro? No? Oh, well, it stuttered on my end. Everybody was saying it was stuttered on their end, so anyway, maybe it'll just fix itself and I have an excuse to not do my job. So welcome, everybody. We're excited to have another 4th week episode here of MC Fireside Chats. This is the week where we talk about all things AI and technology. We have a couple guests with us today. Peter Pilarski, I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second. And Mike, who I don't know your last name, from Campsite Tonight. What's your last name, Mike?
Lee.
Mike? Oh, that's even easier. I think I can remember Mike Lee without it being displayed in front of me. Hopefully I'm not that old. But briefly, gentlemen, do you want to introduce yourselves? Peter, do you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I am Peter Pilarski, and I am the founder of the Tourism AI Network, an organization focused on helping the tourism industry adopt AI. And then I also run a marketing agency called CIPR Communications, which is transforming, I would say, into an agency that's focused on what I call helping tourism with digital authority. So I can unpack that in a little bit, but so really AI adoption and digital authority, those are my two games that I play every day.
Yeah, you and I can unpack that too, because I'm a marketing agency that was there for like 15 years, and I'm running as fast away from that as I can into other stuff, like still marketing, but not anywhere close to the same. Mike, please introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm a tech worker turned entrepreneur. And so I am the solo developer, owner, camper advocate for a mobile app called Campsite Tonight. It primarily operates in the US and focuses on 2 things. One is aggregating availability across numerous sources. As many of you probably know, availability is very fragmented from various public entities, private entities. And so I do a good job of trying to aggregate that. And then the feature that most of my premium users love is something called add to cart. And so I'll monitor for cancellations, and then I will put it into your cart so you can check out. I don't check out for you, but that's been incredibly helpful for folks who are trying to visit the U.S. national parks, which are perennially sold out, and the cancellations are hard to actually pick up unless you're attached to your phone, which many of us are, but you really need to be attached to it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm excited to dive into what your app does. I noticed that your background is the same as many of our other guests' background. Is that like the Silicon Valley house where you guys all build their tech products all together? Or is that just a generic Google Meet background that I'm making a bad joke about?
This is the only background that's stock on this.
Is it really?
stream.
I didn't even know that. So
that's
nice.
probably
That's why
why.
everybody chooses it then. Okay. All right. Yeah. Everybody's in the nice house with the pool. I'm like, I haven't made it to the pool yet. I don't know what I'm doing wrong in my life, but okay. So let's start with you, Peter. Let's briefly talk about just tell us what you do. Let me give you a softball.
Sure. Yeah. So I really kind of help companies, specifically in tourism, on, again, what I call the 2 sides of AI adoption or adaptation. And so, as I mentioned, Tourism AI Network really focus on helping with AI adoption. And what that means is either helping people just learn about AI tools and understand how to implement them in their businesses, to building AI strategies, to building custom AI solutions. So just depending on kind of the need of the company and the size of the company. And then on my marketing agency side, it's really what I call digital authority. And so, what I'll say is I started off as a PR agency. I've been running a PR agency from day one. We eventually added digital marketing to our PR agency, and kind of we're in this interesting full circle moment where all of a sudden PR is important again, even though it always was important. And so it's kind of funny timing, but for me, it's like digital marketing and PR. You bring those things together, and it's really about digital authority and really making tourism, either destinations or tourism operators, really the authorities in their industries on digitally, so that they're basically it's whether you're doing Google search or you're searching through AI tools, or you're whatever way you're looking for information about that destination or about that operator, they're basically they're what's being served up and what's being recommended. So to me, that's kind of what digital authority is. It's really PR and digital marketing kind of brought together into one discipline.
I want to unpack that more with you little by little, but first I want to ask, like, the authority angle is interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody, I think of it the same way, but I don't know if I've ever heard anybody package it as neatly as you just did. Because I think that's really important for a lot of people to understand. And here's where I take it from. I'm not saying this is your opinion, this is mine, right? Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But like I view it as authority is the single source of what you need to be working on for the next, well, however long this, whatever we're going into. Excuse me, sorry. Um, because like you're nearing a future now, depending on the survey you look at, 40, 50, 60%, 40, 50% of website traffic is all bots already. Some regular bots, some Google search, some ChatGPT searching from ChatGPT, some agents browsing websites. But by all intents accounts, that's probably going to be at least 55, 60% by the end of the year and only climb from there, depending on who you believe. And then at that point, the button design and the curves and the call to action you're agonizing over for 18 hours in your meeting doesn't matter anymore.
Correct.
It collapses into authority, which shows in AI systems, which causes you to be the answer to more questions and then causes people to consider you to purchase or use as a travel planner or whatever your business is, right?
Yeah, very well put. And I would say you're absolutely right. And so, and it's not only authority in terms of, traditional authority from a digital marketing perspective. So, website authority is kind of the digital marketing term, but it's authority beyond that. So to me, authority is also, what are people saying about you off your website? So that's your Reddit posts, or, do you have editorial content, i.e. are you being published by newspapers or magazines or third-party, credible third-party sites, right? So to me, authority is a lot of things beyond just your website, but obviously you have to also have the content on your website that is you're the authority on the topic on whatever your piece of the world is, right? And you have all of the answers in your content that the AI systems and the humans are looking for, right? So essentially we're away from this old SEO game of just writing content. We're answering questions. And then now we're also making sure we're credible businesses, so that when the AI systems search us, they're saying, yeah, these are really good answers from a really credible organization. And so to me, all of that makes up digital authority.
Do you feel like, let's start with the website and unpack this for the people who are watching, right? Because if you're most of our audience is campground owners, operators, some big groups, some small groups, suppliers, vendors to the industry, real estate people, stuff like that. If you're a campground owner operator, like most of the last 25, 30, however many you want to peg the internet to starting when people started putting websites online, right? 95-ish has been search and social. That's how everybody discovered everybody. And so I think it's fair to say that most people who are watching and have a campground business in some form or fashion, some terrible and some good, maybe more terrible than good, but have some form of a website presence and some form of a social media presence. And so as you look at the future of, let's start with websites first, do websites need to expand, or do they need to contract, or what does the future of a website look like in Peter's mind?
Yeah, so the future of the website, in my mind, absolutely needs to expand. And really, you need to think about, again, to me, it's just answering questions. So answering questions, if you're at the campsite level or campground level, answering questions about everything related to your campground and the experience of your campground and what to expect at your campground and where to get information about your firewood and this. And so again, it's all about answering the questions, but might be beyond just your campground. So it might be your campground in the immediate, 30-kilometer radius. So maybe the fishing and the lakes and the whatever kind of is part of your campground experience. And so to me, the website has to be the authority on everything related to that at your level, right? And so that's kind of, in my opinion, where the website's going to go. But in addition to that, the website also needs to be searchable by AI tools. And so we can unpack that. There's a lot of technical things that have to happen. It has to be easily understood, indexed easily by AI tools. And eventually it has to also be able to do the transaction itself, right? And it has to be able to kind of work with and connect with other AI tools, because we're going to get to a point where the human's not even going to be involved anymore. It might be, I'll go to my AI.
Like that.
Sorry?
Google UCP, Universal Commerce Protocol, and stuff like that. Where
things like that. Yeah. We're not there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. I saw the other day, what was it? The Gap is doing a trial with Google where they're going to make purchases, I think, in Google search. They haven't released travel for that yet, but it's a stated goal that it's coming.
It's coming.
So yeah, it's maybe a couple of years off, right? Depending on if it's adopted, but
yeah.
So let's look at websites, because, and just one more question
Can
related
I,
to this, because yeah, please, Mike, go
Brian,
ahead.
can I hop in?
Yeah.
You know, what's funny is I've spent a lot of time talking to campers, and at least for me, I don't believe they're looking to buy through AI. And maybe that's because it hasn't become good enough. But
Buy or
you know,
discover? Two different things.
I certainly mean buy.
Okay.
Discover, I think they love AI and they'd love to have help. But you know, buy, they love to be specific. And what I mean by that is some users want to be close to the bathroom. Some people want to be under trees. Some people want to have site ABC. Some people don't want those sites. And the criteria in which they are trying to decide what they want seem to differ, you know, quite a lot from camper to camper. I haven't found much standardization. And so for me, I've just gone kind of the opposite path of just saying, hey, I'll give you power users who love to go camping, like as many choices as possible. So you can control your own destiny. But I did originally think that, hey, you know what? People are just looking for ease. I want to go camping here. Help me go. But that wasn't actually enough. They wanted to have much more control, and you know, they wanted to look at photos. They wanted to have a better understanding without being beholden to something doing it for them.
I think I agree with you. Like, I think it gets there. I think it's going to take a couple years. And I also think, and Peter, I want to hear your thoughts on this too. I think for the next 20 years, we'll have people who love to do the trip planning and who are maybe boomer generation or something like that, hanging onto websites for a long time, visually browsing, speaking wise.
Yeah.
But I think it just inches up. I think it hits like 70, 75, and then it inches up.
Yeah. I mean, and so first of all, Mike, I agree with you as well. I'm probably talking about more of a future state in terms of like the AI tools aren't there from a commerce perspective and a buying perspective. Society's not there yet, but that's where it's going to go. I think it's just a matter of time. But what I'm saying is your point exactly, Mike, of what you're saying there is exactly the point. And so, you know, I want to be under a tree in the shade next to the bathroom. All of that is content that needs to sort of live on the website or be there for the web, for the AI to help people discover that information or the context, and for the human. So when I say the website, you know, we need to kind of expand our websites, it's actually for both the human and the AI. So it's really, we need to just answer people's questions. So if people have a lot of very specific things they want, we need to provide them with the information so that they can make a very nuanced decision based on their preferences and what they want. And I think that's what's missing currently. You know, we write all these content about, I don't know, top 10 things to do here and all this kind of like fluff content, where it's really people want the specific information about this campground or this campsite or this, right? How I'm going to plan my day if I'm over here and I'm going to spend 3 days over in this campground. What am I going to do? Right. So I think that's kind of, you know, we're getting away from that short form sort of keyword to much more nuanced, longer form, you know, type questions, because we can ask our AIs all of that now.
And it is a problem in the industry. Like, it's specifically in campgrounds. I'm sure it's a problem in other industries too. But we've talked about this on the show before, and I've talked about it to many of my clients. Like the booking engines they use, third party, doesn't matter what booking engine you use, CampSpot, NewBook, ResNexus, RMS, whatever. They all have that date picker that you have to go through, and they usually load the thing in JavaScript, and they load it in a dynamic way, so where the AI can't read all that information about the site. So when you're searching in ChatGPT alone, it's, for one, that's not using agentic tools right now. It's not filling out a date picker to get that information. So many campground owners are burying their pull-through back-end patio site furniture, 50 amp, 30 amp, has Wi-Fi, doesn't, all behind that booking engine that the AI can't read. So when someone asks, hey, I want to go camping near Austin, Texas or Calgary, Alberta, and I want a site that's under $70 a night that's pull-through, it has no idea that you offer that because that's not on your website anywhere. It's on your booking engine.
Yeah. And so it's important then. That's a very important distinction, Brian, in terms of the information that needs to also be on your website or accessible for search. And I'm just going to call it search. It's AI search, it's Google search, all search. I just think we're kind of in we're in the answer game now, more than just the content for the sake of content game.
Which I think is a better world, honestly. Like, I was kind of sick of the content fluff game from a marketing perspective.
I think so.
All right. So we've unpacked website. And how does that impact people like Mike? Like, so Mike's running Campsite Tonight. Do we have any data or evidence on how AI is treating apps or discovering apps, or can it dig deep into apps, or do you have anything? I don't. Do you have anything on that, Peter, or Mike, that you know?
I'll let Mike answer first. I'd be curious to hear what he says, but I have some information or thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, before I fully jump into it, what I'd kind of say is like if you come from the other side, you're either Google or you're these AI machines. The thing that Peter is saying is very crucial, but I'd call it out differently, which is you want to make sure they can easily digest the information. And what I mean by this is like actually writing a blog post or writing some of these things isn't easily digestible for the machines. It actually needs to be in a very specific structured format. Otherwise, they're not going to take it. And the reason why they're not going to take it is largely, I think, although camping is popular, the long tail of campgrounds is very large. And so they're not going to spend all this excess computing effort to tweeze out the detail from a blog post or to tweeze out something from a web page that's not structured in a way for the machine to read easily. Now, if it's structured in a way for the machine to read easily, they'll read it all day long because it's essentially just teed up for them. And I think that's really crucial. And Brian, you kind of touched on that earlier, talking about how the data is hidden behind. But even if the data is not hidden behind, it just needs to be teed up because these companies are not Nike.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's why, and I want you to finish, but I think that's why Peter and I, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, Peter, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think that's why we're kind of sick of the marketing fluff, is like, we know that nobody ever read that shit anyway. I don't know if I can say shit on this podcast. It's my later podcast, or I swear. But nobody read that anyway. Like, we're creating these plans for campgrounds now where we're creating individual, like, amenities pages, a page on your playground that describes your playground. And we have clients emailing us back like, this is too dense. Nobody's going to read this. Like, look at your heat mapping. 78% of people don't scroll past your hero image. So we can win both ways, right? So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I think that's going to be the crucial thing to try to stand out. I think the other thing is just thinking about what your edge is if you're a campground host. And so, you know, if you're in Austin, Texas, and you have a lazy river because you're a humongous, RV campground, like trying to play that up in the right way, I think will go much farther than trying to just even structure the data as I just talked about, because that's not necessarily going to distinguish you from some other player. I think it's going to be really important to distinguish you. And, again, having those data points and questions in a structured way for AI and Google to consume.
I think you're completely right. So the way we present this to our clients to help them easily understand it is the playground example I gave. We say, like, I mean, you already know how ChatGPT can remember your name and a little bit of details about you, and that memory is only going to get better in the very near term. Like, I can already do it with like an OpenClaw or something like that, but you have your own personal assistant on ChatGPT that knows and remembers everything about you because it's connected to all your things. And you can say you won't give that to people, but convenience always wins. You will connect it to everything. And so at some point, right, you're going to get these agents that go out on behalf of, and Peter, I'm just going to give you a 7-year-old daughter. I don't know if you have one, but I'm going to give you one for my example. So Peter has a 7-year-old daughter who loves playgrounds. Time to book the camping trip, whether you do that or the agent reaches out to you proactively in the future, goes to research campgrounds. We'll just use Austin because we've been talking about it. Finds an amenities page with 20 bullet points. One's a campground. Check. Little girl's happy. Goes to the competitor website. That has a dedicated playground page that's fleshed out more, as you talk about, Mike, with more details and information, and has the photos of the playground and says, I have a plastic slide instead of a metal slide so your kid's butt won't get burned on an 80-degree Texas day. And if they fall off the teeter-totter, it's mulch. And we have 2 swings, and here's some activities that people can do on our little merry-go-round thing. Where do you think the AI is going to pick for that girl? Like, we don't know. Neither does Sam Altman, but we think everybody will think the AI should probably choose the one that has more details and information because it's going to be able to guarantee that little girl has a better experience, right? Do you agree, Peter?
I think it's like it depends on all the other pieces of information held equal. So, an example would be that if you looked at Google reviews and one is a 3.5 and one is a 4.5, that's a pretty big difference. So it doesn't matter how great your playground structured data is. If you're not providing the service, I think that's what's still crucial.
I agree with that. Yeah, everything intertwines with each other for
So
sure.
I'm going to go back to kind of where I started, which is like, it's so funny to me because I've been a PR agency first, and then PR has been kind of my foundation of my career for a long time. And then we added digital marketing, and now we're kind of in this full circle moment. And I kind of always tell people, and I think what Mike just said just nails it here. It's like, at the end of the day, every brand in the world needs to just do good work and communicate well about the good work that they do. And then, really have their reputation sort of do the heavy lifting, right? So to Mike's point, it's like, if you have a 4.5 star Google rating and 300 reviews and recency in your reviews, and people are talking positively about you, that's going to have a massive impact on those AI tools, basically referring you instead of your competitor, and recency matters. And so, like, what I kind of tell my clients all the time is, like, it doesn't really matter what you say about yourself. What matters is actually what people say about you and what people believe about you. Now, you still have to do the work and have the right content and have all of the information and have it fleshed out and have it structured properly. So a couple of things that we're recommending to people on their websites is, the Q&A shouldn't just be a Q&A page somewhere on your website. There should be Q&A on every page of your website that's relevant to the section, that whatever content is on that website, right? So again, we want to, and it all comes down to just having a great user experience, and then ultimately just being a good company that does good work that people will talk about. So what's cool about this for me, if I think about tourism and campgrounds and everything else, is hopefully the AI tools can help the operators spend less time in front of their computers and more time providing great experiences and wow moments, which actually will help their reputation and actually will probably lead to better results and reviews, which will actually lead to them becoming more referenced by Google and AI tools and the like, right? So it's sort of this kind of whole full circle piece to me.
Yeah, somewhere along the line, hospitality became 75% of our staff sits on the other side of a computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can now reverse that. And I think AI is going to help in the long term, 10 years, 5-10 years, help bring more of that community back to where we can spend more time on actual hospitality.
I hope so. That's kind of my hope out of all of this. Yeah.
So, Mike, you were going to get to the app question, right? Do you have any, like, how does Campsite Tonight function in a world where we have AI discovery? I mean, it has a place, right? But how do you view that?
So certainly with AI discovery, I think, again, you have to find your edge is, I think, where I view it. And my edge is really from a data background. And so, if you look at one of my website pages that I've fleshed out and built, I push, a lot of, I'd say, ideally helpful information for serious campers that want to go to national parks or very popular parks. It won't just tell you, like, here's what we have, here's what's there, here's what people do. It'll tell you, hey, you want to go in July, you don't have a spot. Historically, here's how many spots were re-reserved less than 7 days before check-in in July. Here's how many were done in 2 weeks before. Here's how many were done, a month before. You want to look in August? Do you want to look in June? This is what I'll give you. And I can split it by site type and all these different dimensions, site length. And then that way, what people get is, hey, what's my chance to go? Because particularly for some of these in-demand places, their supply is far exceeded by demand. And so, there are always cancellations. And if you don't know that or you don't feel confident about it, this will help get you there. And so, again, I take that data, I structure it in a way for AI to use. And I'd say that, like, when I made some of these pages, and I probably updated about 40 or 50, I saw my search impression traffic from Google triple. It was nothing. I did no different things other than, present the data and restructure it in a way for Google to consume and use. And then now it shows up more in, review snippets. It shows up more in just general search results. And all of these things, I think, are the things that you can do as you think about, again, how AI will help you with your discovery. Now, I would switch gears and saying, like, we did talk a little bit about AI and, like, agentic buying. again, I think these things are all fine when the competitive dynamics are not too high. But I'm sure, Peter, you live in Canada. I thought you said Calgary. I'm very positive that the national parks in the summer going to Canada are supremely competitive. And so agentic buying actually won't help you unless you're, trying to pick up a cancellation where they happen more randomly. People don't know when they're going to happen, and it can help you buy your site. If you're
But you
talking
could
about
build an agent that just hammers the national park over and over again for a subscription fee, right? And then make sure they get their site. There's a 20% chance, but we'll have an agent check every 35 seconds for you for $2 a try.
I mean, largely that's what my app does
Okay.
for the U.S. national parks. There's a lot of different complexities there, but checking is only part of the thing, right?
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about picking up a cancellation. That's a little bit different than booking in real time, because in real time, when the sites are released, you're talking about hundreds or maybe thousands of sites being booked in 2 seconds. And, as AI and people's bots and that type of stuff get better and better, so does detection. And so, the host site isn't going to just let you run an API call or run some type of automated looking booking. It's going to say, well, I haven't seen this Brian's account log in like this before ever. This seems strange. Brian has accessed my website 54 times in 2 months, and this one looks nothing like the other 54. I'm not going to let it through. And so, I think that gets
and then I want your thoughts on
tough.
that, Peter. Finish, and then I want your thoughts on it, because I have my own thoughts. Go ahead, Mike.
I think that will get particularly tough, particularly for public lands, because public lands are very different than private land. Private land, I don't think people will mind this, even if you create some kind of turnstile feature where people come in, first come, first serve. But public land has a little bit of a different. But public land has a little bit of a different service that they have to provide. They can't really provide a pay-to-play service. That's not in the interest of their, mandate, I'd say.
Yep.
But you could, if you had an agent that used. So my thing with bots is this: you're not wrong. Like, there are companies like Cloudflare who are aggressively trying to block these bots in different ways. In some ways, making terrible decisions on behalf of business owners, blocking all AI bots. But that's another conversation. And you're right. Like, we've seen on moderncampground.com, even on our insiderperks.com, and many of our client sites, traffic from, I'm going to pronounce the city wrong, Langzhou, China, has gone up like 800,000% year over year. And there's constantly like 18 to 50 bots or whatever browsing my website from this single city. And I know that they're probably training all the open source models, but that's fine. Like, I want to be in the open source models, so I don't block it. But then the question becomes is, you're right, they can block some of these headless browsers, but if I'm an agent using real Chrome on your computer, how do you block that and call that a bot is the interesting thing.
That's an interesting question.
Like, I don't know that you can. You're right, you can flag the pattern, but that'd have to be a really aggressive, delicate, balanced pattern to make sure you're not blocking an actual user. Because eventually everybody's going to have these agents working on their behalf. And we know that the government is, well, they took 15 years to regulate Facebook and they still haven't done it properly. Right? So I agree with you, Mike. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, I think there's a couple different things. First off, at least in the US, we are seeing experiences where releasing all the sites at a specific time creates some of these perverse dynamics in terms of booking. People overbook. People may use these bots. And, what you are seeing is, like, at Olympic National Park, there's a few campgrounds that are staggered. So 1/3 of the sites get released 6 months in advance. 1/3 of the sites get released 1 month in advance, and 1/3 of the sites get released 2 weeks in advance. And that's, again, aimed to fulfill their mandate of making sure people who want to go can go, because not everybody can either plan so far in advance or not everybody can book. right when it opens. I think in terms of what you're saying of, agentic purchasing on device, I'd say I've spent time doing it. It's still not easy. It's not easy to
Agreed.
guarantee success. What I'd probably tell you is, again, as technology evolves to evade, the technology to prevent undesirable behavior improves too. And so, one of those things is something called reCAPTCHA. And so I think most people could be familiar with this, which is if you browse a website too crazily, you get told to say, like, choose a sidewalk or choose a bridge or choose a car. And there's a whole bunch of these that actually also exist more silently. And instead of asking you to choose something, they just return back, this looks strange, this type of behavior. And to be honest, even running some automated behavior on a local computer can get flagged like that.
Yes.
Because it just looks non-human. And so if their mandate is to say, hey, we want to block automated behavior, it could be a real user behind it, but they're using automation, and that publisher has decided, I don't want to really allow that for whatever choice they've determined.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where that balance is. Like, where do you end up being too aggressive versus less aggressive? Because if I want to be aggressive, like knowing the tech, there's already companies out there. I can name 5 off the top of my head that have reCAPTCHA solvers in place that the AI can already do this, right? So I don't want to take it down that rabbit hole. I'm just asking, like, what is the balance between, like, if you're a business owner or a national park or a public land or whatever else or whoever, what's that balance where do I dial it in the middle to make sure I'm getting enough people and blocking enough bots?
Well, I think the middle is different based on the party you're talking about. I think the middle for a national park is different than the middle for a private campground owner. And so I'd be way more permissive on it as a private campground owner. In terms of national park and other items like that, I think it's possible you may get there, but anytime I've talked to anybody from any public, and Peter's probably the best person for this, any public entity, that's really against their mandate. If you had said something like, hey, I'm going to help underrepresented groups get access through AI tooling, maybe you have a better shot. But if you're talking about just general users, I don't see that happening for a while. I think that their mandates won't change that quickly, even if AI does.
Okay, so then circling full circle or coming full circle, I guess, to your app, right? Lots of people still download your app in the App Store. You said you have a website too that lists lists, or you just everything's on the app? Is the inventory,
all the core actions are on the app.
Okay.
There is some cross-posting of data back to the website, more for discovery purposes.
Okay, so I have no doubt that the people you're talking about that are the power users that you explained more eloquently than I could ever repeat in the beginning, and I have no doubt that people like me who are obsessed with travel planning and want to choose all the little details will continue to use an app like yours. Is that enough to get Campsite Tonight by long term, or as the discovery shifts? I think it shifts off apps. I don't have any data that says that yet, right? Does it become harder for a Campsite Tonight to thrive?
I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I'll choose a different travel parallel, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, if you had been buying plane tickets on the internet for a while, there was a period of time where you really probably went to Kayak first, and you went to other websites later to search for prices because the prices weren't all unified for you. So if you wanted to check, Air Canada's price, you wanted to check WestJet's price, you wanted to check, United's price, they just weren't all in one place. And so as a user, it wasn't convenient for you. And so for me, I think on Campsite Tonight, it will continue to be okay. One, because I don't think camping is a large enough vertical that the machines will spend enough time on and energy to make agentic buying as easy as possible. And I think second, for a lot of that to change, we'd have to go to a different non-fragmented or some type of unified availability system that I just can't see happening. You know, if you look inside the US, and I'll just take where I live, which is near in San Francisco, there's 100 campgrounds within 100 miles. That inventory is spread across 50 websites.
Yeah.
Largely due to private campgrounds. But like, even if you look at public ones, within about 100 miles from me, there's, I think, 5 different county websites for 5 different counties. There's a state and there's federal. If I believed that all those systems would push inventory into a singular unified place for the user to benefit, yeah, I think I'll run into a lot of trouble. But do I think that 6 different government entities would align on something like this? It just seems unlikely.
To be clear, like, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying I have a problem with your business model. I think it's fantastic. No. I think that, and I don't know, I think that you eventually take the data from the app. I think the app is the issue. And you take the data and you either pipe it into ChatGPT so people can search all in one place and you become that source of truth, or you put it into UCP, or you put it into like Meta's Ray-Ban glasses, or I just think the interface changes for your data. I don't think your business model is in trouble at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally possible. I had looked into making connectors for ChatGPT, but you know, I think the other issue is I could provide the supply, but if the demand isn't there at the moment, it doesn't really matter.
Agree. Yeah, this is a future thing. This is not a you should do it now thing.
Yeah.
What do you think from a tourism perspective, Peter? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. So first of all, you know, I'll just talk to some changes Google made recently, which are kind of interesting in the sense of much more focused on benefiting kind of local businesses. And so they've made a couple changes recently that have kind of taken the power a little bit away from the aggregator websites. And I'm not saying talking specifically about Campsite Tonight, but I'm talking more of the Expedias and those types of guys out there. So and so they had their core update in December, which was prioritizing local first content over aggregators. And then they did a discovery update, which is prioritized regional storytelling and feeds. And then obviously the real world data, which is maps and business profiles. So what I see happening here is Google's under threat for the first time in a long time. And so Google is looking at their assets and saying, what do we need to change in our tech stack and like, how do we leverage the assets and what we have that makes us unique? And I think there's a lot that Google has, maps and Google business profiles and other things that make Google very unique. And so, you know, they're prioritizing that local first content. And so I think that matters a lot for tourism. I think that matters a lot for campsites. And it kind of goes back to the conversation we started with, is that at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to change out there and who's going to win this game. At the end of the day, if I'm a business owner, I need to think about basically how do I make sure that I'm answering all the questions. And again, we're talking about technology and making sure we're set up for success for technology to find us. But at the end of the day, if we do this well for technology, we do this well for humans as well, right? So, you know, what are the common questions I get asked? What are the details that people are looking for? Back to Mike's point about I want to camp under a tree next to the river and away from the toilet. It's like, okay, well, how do we structure our data and information to make that information available to people so we can actually answer people's questions and give them what they want? I think if we do that well as business owners, we will succeed for our humans and we will succeed for our AI tools. We'll succeed for Google, et cetera, right? So, you know, I think kind of, again, it's sort of this like, it's like a full circle moment for me in terms of just being a good business and giving people what they're looking for and not sort of hiding information unnecessarily, making it as transparent as possible. That's the path forward no matter what.
So if I'm a small business, whether I'm a campground or a tourism operator or whoever, right? We've talked about the website. We've talked about the need to expand it, maybe do frequently asked questions on individual pages.
Yeah.
But if I'm a small business owner, there's a very good chance that I'm overwhelmed by everything that the three of us are talking about right now, right? I've got a website designer, but I don't know what they do. I don't know what SEO actually means to them, whether that's a plugin and they've ignored it for 3 years or right.
Yeah.
So where do I start? Because what I tell my clients is like after you talk, or the prospective clients I talk to, is after you talk to me, go to ChatGPT and ask if Brian was full of shit, right? Because you can now.
Yeah.
But where do they start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would say, first of all, just asking ChatGPT questions and seeing what comes up is a great place to start, and just kind of getting an understanding of things. But, I'm going to go back to Google still matters a lot, and fundamentally people still use Google. So if I had limited budget, limited time, I would start actually with making sure my Google properties are up to date. So Google Business Profile, super important, right? So Google is prioritizing that again. So making sure your Google Business Profile has all the information is up to date, all your hours are up to date, your phone number, all that kind of stuff, right? Reviews, getting reviews really matters a lot. Interestingly, photo velocity is starting to matter. So Google's actually prioritizing recency a lot more now. And so just making sure that there's photos constantly. So, treat your Google Business Profile like a social media account and post often on there, post content on there, make sure everything's up to date. That's like really easy, low hanging fruit. And that will serve you well in the Google world, right?
So before you go to number 2,
Yeah.
but can we show the Maps video, what they're doing to Maps? Because I think that fits in really well with the Ask Maps feature. It's open right here, Jessica, if you want to share the screen. No, the Maps. It's the 6th one down. Yep. We played it last week on Outwired, but we're going to play it on this show because nobody's seen it yet. So this is a little promo video from Google about their new Maps feature, which is relevant to all the campground owners and tourism operators too. Go ahead. I think that hits to the heart of a little bit of what you're talking about, Peter, like the number of reviews. Like this is, we talked about website, but number 1, updating Google Maps, because that single source of truth is going to pull from the more reviews you get, the more people talk about you, the more photos you have, the more the AI is going to either structured data, extract all that stuff, or eventually see it, right? Depending on the compute power. So really important.
Exactly, really important. And then I think similarly having as well that information on your website.
Yes.
That will make sure you're visible to not just Google, but others as well. So back to, I love Mike's sort of early example of I want a campground under the tree, away from the bathroom, next to the river or whatever. It's like, well, that information has to somehow exist somewhere digitally in order for somebody to be able to actually find something like that, right? So that's where the photos, the maps, the details, all that information has to somehow be thought of in terms of how do I make that available digitally, right? And how do I answer questions as much as possible?
All right, so that was your number 1. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is, really, I think answering questions is really on your website. I think that is the job of a website now, is just answering questions and really restructuring your content in a way that gets into more of a Q&A and short answers in short form. But in addition to answering questions, there's also some technical things you can do on your website. And this is getting a little technical, but for example, schema. So for those who don't know what schema is essentially, directions to digital tools as to what's on your website. So, when an AI tool is looking for an answer to something, they're scanning a website to see if the answer exists on that website. And then they might go and check reviews and third-party information to see if this is a credible website, and then come back. And so making sure you have not only the content structured in a way that's easy for the AI tools and the humans to parse and make sense of, but also you have some instructions on the back end in your code to tell the AI tools what's actually on your website, so it can scan it and make it easier to find. So those are, I think, kind of two really important things. And then the other thing, the other component that AIs really like, and I've done a lot of AI search visibility audits recently, is specific verifiable numbers. And I'm going to give you an example. I have a heli skiing client who has the largest heli skiing tenure in the world. And the largest heli skiing tenure in the world is sort of a hard concept to get your head around a little bit, other than, it's a lot of heli skiing area, right? But when I did an AI search visibility audit, it said, oh, the AI is really, quote, that you have 10,100 square kilometers of heli skiing terrain. That's saying the same thing as the largest heli skiing tenure in the world, but it's saying it differently. And that's a very quotable, verifiable number. And AI tools really like quotable, verifiable numbers. So as much as possible as thinking about your language and what's quotable, verifiable, that can be consistently put out across the internet, as, again, kind of what Mike was talking about. That's a very unique component of that business that the AI tools will quote all day long. And they'll quote it with largest heli skiing tenure. And that's something that makes that business very unique. And when people are searching, they're looking for a unique heli skiing experience. Well, here's the largest heli skiing tenure in the world. It's 10,100 square kilometers, right? And so that's something that will then be surfaced by the AI tools a lot.
And so to frame this in a way that a campground owner would understand, let's take something super simplistic like the headline on your website, the H1, I'm a campground near Austin, Texas, or I'm a campground 35 miles from downtown Austin, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, so that's a pretty good start for people then. So talk to your website designer. Well, talk to ChatGPT first and have ChatGPT tell you what to talk to your website designer about.
Exactly.
And then when he gives you the answers, which is probably him talking to ChatGPT while he's on the meeting with you, then go back to ChatGPT and just make sure it's all kosher.
Yeah.
You need to know, like, what ChatGPT, I think, has given people the ability to do. And I've always said this to people, like, know 5% enough about everything to be dangerous enough to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have the ability to be 30, 40% of that just by asking ChatGPT. But just be 5%. Like, don't believe your website designer when they tell you, they say they're all in on AI. Ask, well, give me specifics.
Exactly.
You got to know that stuff, because this is the future of your business that you're talking about here in a more existential way than I think it's ever been in 30 years.
I think so. And I'll just add one more point, Brian, in terms of things for people to consider. What's important is, I call it entity consistency. So making sure that all digital places are consistently talking about you the same way. So back to your, I'm a campground 35 kilometers from downtown Austin, Texas. That should be on your LinkedIn account, on your Facebook account, on your, you know what I mean? And like having it consistent everywhere. If you're writing press releases, that's in the about section of your press release. So the more places certain things are repeated that are very verifiable, the more likely then it's going to be surfaced by Google and AI tools in a very consistent way. And I'm going to use myself as an example of this. And this it's a very heartbreaking example, of a real example. And so I've run, obviously I have Tourism AI Network, really shows up well. And I have CIPR Communications. And the challenge we've had with CIPR Communications always from day one is that we started off as a general purpose marketing agency, and we started specializing in tourism. And so I did this digital authority audit on my website recently. And I gave it some parameters in terms of like where I'm going and the direction and all this kind of stuff. And what it came back to is said, well, you said that you want to specialize in tourism, but right now what I'm seeing online across all digital assets is a general purpose agency that serves tourism. And so are you a general purpose agency that serves tourism, or are you a tourism focused agency that has other clients? And it was like, that was like the fundamental question to me, which we have work to do, obviously, but that's an example of entity consistency. It's like, okay, well, what are you? and what is that sort of claim in the world that you're making about you. And that's where Mike's talking about sort of, what makes you differentiated and special. And then how do you make that consistent across the whole internet? So basically that's kind of what's known about you when the search comes back.
And sometimes it's just such a small change, like near Austin to 35 kilometers to I'm serving tourism versus I'm a tourism agency.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Mike, I have a question about your app again. Are you just working with national and state parks? Are you working with private campgrounds at all, or?
So I do have private campgrounds on there. So I'll show results from HipCamp and CampSpot if you've input dates.
Okay.
Then I'll go fetch it for you. If you haven't input dates, I won't show the result on the map. I also have some of the KOAs in the US too. Also, if you put in dates. I'd love to put in more, honestly, but it hasn't been the highest priority for me.
Okay. Most of the demand has been for the national park, which makes sense with the amount of demand and all that stuff, and where you're going with like the cancellations and things like that.
That's right. I mean, I think I had started with Discovery, and that's why I had brought those various sources in, because I thought, I'd love to just be aware of all the possible choices. But that wasn't something people were willing to pay for. They were actually okay to do at that time Discovery across many different systems, and I was okay with them.
Yeah, I mean, own what you're really good at, right? It makes sense. I think as we just talked about, AI will like it too. So
yeah, niching and being specialized helps a lot, actually, as it turns out.
Yeah. I would say, again, just to emphasize what Peter said about, making it consistent. So if your message is about being close to Austin, it's not even just about having that message probably be consistent, but it's about weaving that through someone's, experience. And so it's saying, well, we're really close to Austin, and maybe you are suggesting a bunch of things people can go do in Austin on a day trip. And those types of items that play into your strength. And so it's not just, hey, we've put this text everywhere. It's leaning into that and weighing that experience in and saying, we're the closest. And you want to go down to South Congress? We can get you there in 25 minutes, or I don't know, whatever the number is.
No, that's a great point. Yeah.
And it's a living, breathing machine as we think about this and move forward at such a rapid pace. But even just your website, it's not somebody designed my website and then they pay for my hosting and I don't talk to them but once a year. This is a whole different thing now. This is thinking through what Mike just said. This is thinking through the tourism versus whatever, the Austin versus kilometers. And maybe you don't do this because you don't have the time to do this as a campground owner, but you've got to make sure somebody is on your behalf, which is probably going to mean budgeting more for your website and your marketing. But I don't control the world. That's just the way the world is, right? So
yeah, well, and to kind of broaden this out a little bit, and this is back to kind of what I maybe started with, is around the whole PR and being a good corporate citizen. So if I think about the 35 kilometers from Austin kind of piece to it, right? And so if I'm going to write content around we're 35 kilometers away from, or miles, sorry, I'm in Canada, but miles away from Austin, maybe I'm writing content pieces about, hey, we're 35 miles away from Austin and these 18 other things to do around us. And so now we're giving people sort of a bit of a, hey, you're staying at our campground, but here's all the things to do around here. And now imagine I create partnerships with all 18 of those different providers, and I have some kind of, either a discount or just some kind of referral or whatever that looks like. Now all of a sudden I have a natural link on my website to this other property. And so that's kind of what I talk about when I talk about the sort of full circle PR moment of like being a good corporate citizen. And this is the role that destination management and marketing organizations play in terms of like tying all of these pieces together. But also every individual business has these partnerships and has these different relationships. And how do we surface all of those to, again, provide a better user experience for people, right? Ultimately. So that's kind of how it all comes together full circle in my mind. And a lot of those things are things I think campground owners probably do, but they just don't put it on their website and don't make it available to people.
Well, and then what it becomes is not just I'm 35 kilometers from, I don't even know if there's a natural history museum in Austin, but we'll just say Austin Natural History Museum, right? If there isn't, somebody should build one. So it becomes like we've partnered with the Austin Natural History Museum to offer a 15% discount, and then that is something that can surface in AI in
Right.
where do I get discounts to the Natural History Museum? And then, oh, you can stay here and look at this glamping experience and look at these unique cabins. And
That's right.
that's something unique because the AI is already going to be able to connect a little bit to the fact that you're near Austin, that you're near the Natural History Museum, but the distance and the discount are unique things that it wants to cite.
Exactly.
You
And
think?
now think about the traveler that's sort of thinking about planning their trip, and they might be using AI tools to start the planning of their trip, but they're using long tail search queries, and they're asking all kinds of questions, and this is kind of how it all kind of comes together for them. And maybe ultimately the booking doesn't happen on platform, but they're at least sort of figuring out the starting point and figuring out all the connections. And by creating those connections yourself, you become the hub basically, and you become the answer, right?
Yep. All right, we've only got a couple minutes left here. Final thoughts, Mike? And where can they learn more about Campsite Tonight and download your app, obviously?
Well, to find more about the app, you can just go to my website, campsitetonight.app, or you could probably search for Campsite Tonight and it should show up. I think the tough thing is, look, I run a small business too. Trying to do everything is very, very tough. And so my only guidance to the campground owners would be try to think about what your biggest problem is, right? Is your biggest problem on-site experience? Is your biggest problem discovery? And then making sure you're spending the right amount of time and energy focused on improving that area. That's what I've often seen pay the most dividends. And trying to do everything isn't going to help you. Focus on the biggest needle mover.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you joining us. Peter, final thoughts, and where can they find more?
Yeah,
about
I mean,
your-
I actually love the advice of focus as well, because I think to the point of this conversation, there's lots of different things we talked about, and it's all very technical and it's all very hard to understand. But again, if discovery is a problem or a challenge, focusing on just your Google business profile and a little bit of your website will go a long way, right? Maybe focusing on the partnerships or creating experience. So again, depending on your situation, but I love the idea of focus. I think that's really good advice because for me too, it gets overwhelming, and I'm actually in a place now where it's like, okay, I know exactly which pain points I want to solve, and I'm going to put all my attention into those pain points, and then I'll move on to the next ones.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's like you said, Peter, you live and breathe this every day. Like I live and breathe this 16, 17 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I get overwhelmed and can't keep up too. So if Peter and I are living and breathing this, and Mike's obviously doing his great things too, but just specifically with AI, like if we can't keep up with all the AI stuff, like you shouldn't try either. But
Yeah.
if you pick that one thing that is your biggest struggle, like your problem that you want to solve, and in marketing or AI awareness, like what we talked about on the show is a good start. But whatever that problem is, just focus on that singular thing, get it done, knock it out, and then move on to the next thing.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Another episode of MC Fireside Chats. If you are not sick and tired of hearing from me, I will be on Outwired in about, I don't know, an hour, something like that, with Scott Barr, who will be talking about data and research in the campground industry, all things AI tech that podcast covers. If not, we will see you next week on another episode of MC Fireside Chats. Thank you, Peter and Mike, for joining us. Go download Campsite Tonight. Go check out Peter if you need. You want campground clients for PR, Peter?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Where do they find out more about CIPR?
CIPRcommunications.com or tourismainetwork.com. Either one will get you to me.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.